Welcome everybody to this podcast. I haven't even given it a name yet. This is the second episode, and in this episode, we are here with a guest, Etienne. And I will let you say your last name because I don't want to butcher it, and you will just do an introduction. But Etienne is an awesome, awesome guy, and his story is on YouTube. I watched that video. It's only 8 minutes long. I'll put the link in the comments, but you got to check it out. It's a beautiful video, beautiful story. And I let Etienne introduce himself here.
Hi, my name is Etienne Gelinas. I'm a dad, I'm an artist, and I'm also an entrepreneur. And I'm writing kind of as a hobby that became kind of a third career, and that became like project larger than what I was expecting a couple of years ago. And now I'm doing pretty much everything I can in order to get to Dacre in 2024.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So really quickly to summarize your story in 5 words or less, you had an injury to your spine, you overcame that, you walked out of the hospital, and that inspired you to follow your dream to go to Dacre. Is that right?
Yes, basically I've been in a bed for many months before I had my surgery, the first one. And I had a lot of time to think about what I didn't do in my life and I wanted to do, and what I could possibly not be able to do anymore, because for a long period of time I didn't even know if my injury was operatable, if a surgery was an option at that time. So for quite some time, I thought that I missed my opportunity to accomplish some of my dreams, and I told myself, and I kind of hung up on that idea that if I go through this and if I get back on my feet and I've become a normal human being again, I would do everything I can in order to accomplish this dream that I'm having since I'm a child.
Yeah, it's always, we hear about situations like that, and there's a quote saying how we have 2 lives. One starts when we are born, and the second one starts the moment we realize we only have 1 life. And everybody says that at the end of your life, you review back what you've done and what you haven't done.
I mean, all my life, like everyone else, I was aware that we have 1 life. It's important to live the moment. It's important to pursue your passions and things like that. But I was kind of taking this concept like, okay, one day I will die, so I need to do things before I die. But I never approached this thing at one day I'll be invalid. I'm not invalid, but I'll be incapable of walking anymore. And what I realized in this experience is that no matter if they fix me and I can walk back again, at one point in my life, again, when I'll be like 90 something years old, walking will become a challenge, So there's things that if I want to experience, it's now or forget about it. So that's a bit the lesson that I've learned in this experience. And for me, it was like there's a limited time to use your potential, because this potential is fading out. So it's now or never. So I decided to put everything in order to make it happen.
That is such an important point, because I remember somebody once said that people live as if they're immortal, as if they will live forever. They squander time, they don't appreciate what they have, and essentially we all are in the situation when we're thinking, oh, well, someday, some way we're going to get to our dreams, to doing what we want, but the time passes by. Meanwhile, we're still in that thinking that we have so much more time left. Yeah. And I guess situations like that really bring forth how everything is unknown and stable. You never know how things are going to go.
Yeah, exactly.
It
I
is
was I
incredible.
was talking with another writer yesterday about a potential collaboration for the Baja 1000 this year, and this guy is 49 right now, and he's basically approaching this thing the same way I do. It's like he feels it like pretty much his deadline to experience things like that, because after that it's kind of, you need to be at the top of your physical capacity in order to go through those challenges. So it's not at 65 that you're at the top of your physical capacity. Maybe for some, some people who's having a very particular genetics, but I'm pretty sure at 65 I won't be at my top that I could have been in my life.
That is so true. And we have our limitations. Sometimes I think we have them for a reason. There are always limitations placed on us, whatever we're doing. So, be it time limitation or a physical limitation, and we're always striving to go past those. It's like the human experience. We're always striving to go past our limitations, because otherwise we would just not even know where to start. If we had no distinctions, we wouldn't have ability to make choices, because then everything would be available now for grabs. So in that regard, sometimes it seems like the limitations are placed for a reason, so that we can grow with the utmost possibility. So let's talk about this past weekend, which was the Dacre rally, and it was so awesome. And this was my first event. Usually I ride on the street, but through some coincidence, I encountered and learned about it, and decided, well, I'm just going to go, because what's the point of sitting and waiting? Just like you said, life is happening, and we got to just go and get into life, get into living. So I was really impressed with the whole event. And it was a long event. It started at 4 a.m, and some of the riders came after midnight. It was incredible. However, we had a really good weather and really good organizing and really great trails. So what was your experience of it, and what made you decide to go to that rally besides training for the Dakar?
First of all, I did it last year. I completely loved the event. The concept of the endurance, it's something that we were talking about, pushing our limits. Endurance is all about pushing your limit while you're pacing yourself in order to go all the way there. Because if you go too far at the beginning, like I did last year, at lunchtime I was exhausted, and the rest of the day was painful, because I pushed too hard in the morning, and when I arrived at lunch I was already completely empty. So this year I went on a more comfortable pace, in order compared to me, because in these kind of events you're only with yourself, and that's it. You cannot really compare yourself with anyone else. It's like the goal is to finish, and Lee is good at to make sure that you won't. So and I took it on I think more mature approach this year, which made me finish at the end of the day, and I was still like having energy, and I was ready to start back the next morning. I loved the day. It was wonderful. We've been lucky with the weather, like you said, on the day itself, but we've been lucky with the weather and the previous days too, because we would have like 5 days of rain before. With the same weather that day, that would have been a hell on earth, because all of those trails would have been like muds, like at your knee, and it would have been like so much harder to going through all of the stages. So we've been lucky at one point with the weather on the day itself, but with the weather the previous days too. So the trails were just amazing. I mean, Ontario, this area, this Calabugie area and Algonquin parks and all of those forests are just magnificent. I have on footage on my camera a couple of lookout where I stopped, because when I arrived on the top of the mountain, I saw all of this landscape. It was epic. So I took a little break there, filmed a bit, just the landscape, because it was so amazing. So many water, body of water, we're saying in English. So many body of water that we were passing by, and it's just so beautiful, just magnificent.
Yeah, and you saying paced yourself. Whenever my perception was, and I didn't know anything about the trail or how it was structured or how the riders are going to deal with it, but I'm arriving there at the first checkpoint, we just barely set up, and you show up on the bike. I'm like, oh, well, this was fast. Okay, I should expect others. No, others came like hours later. So you're pacing yourself. You were like the first. I'm like, I'm not even ready with my camera. and then you came back at the finish line before the sundown. I'm like, what? So that was incredible.
Yeah, and seriously, I often have. I'm a lone rider. I'm always riding alone because nobody's following me, and I'm constantly waiting for everyone in the trail. And a couple of my friends are feeling bad a bit because they can't keep up the pace when they're riding with me. And now they feel a bit better with themselves, because I haven't competed a lot in the past. I've started last year to register in events like the Dacre, like Coureur des Bois, and on Quebec side. And this year I'm also doing FMSQ event on the circuit. I never compared myself with anyone before, so I knew that I was experienced. I did hundreds of thousands of kilometers of motorcycle in my life. I knew that I knew how to manage a bike, but I never knew that I was on a good level compared to some other riders. So things like that, like I said, my main concern that morning was to go slow. And you're telling me I arrived at the checkpoint and everyone is like, what? Already someone? And in the afternoon, I was literally arriving at checkpoint and there was nobody. People were arriving after me at the checkpoint. So I was waiting there, and they were scanning my tag, and I was leaving. But yeah, it was a beautiful event. Seriously, it was I have a wonderful machine to do that too. So the bike is a perfect setup for myself. So I kind of have a cheat with with that machine.
Yeah, and you touched upon something that is very interesting, and that's kind of the reason why I'm doing this podcast, because riding in itself is very solitary activity. Any kind of motorsport is a rather solitary activity. You're either in the car all by yourself, or you in the bike all by yourself. Even though you are competing in a group with others, it's a kind of very solitary experience. And we don't see much. If it's on the track, there might be spectators in one part, but it's not the whole track. And if it's on the trail, there are no spectators. So there are absolutely nobody's seeing that. So my point was to bring this to light and kind of tell the story of what it's like, so that, and to emphasize how much fun it is, how much more growth goes through the person when they're on it, right? And also to inspire other riders who might be either not knowing about that or just forgotten how much fun it is, because I believe that bikes are important. If it is something that that makes us joy, brings us joy, it is important to continue doing. So that is kind of, and so my question then, even though it's a solitary activity, do you feel like there is a connection between the support crew or the team members or whatever?
Absolutely. The community is amazing. And like I said, since last year, I've been pretty involved in every event I can. I register everywhere I can. I go, like tomorrow I'm loading the trailer and I'm leaving for a training day in Trois-Rivières with a group of people that I know. So this community is very, very active on social media. So there's a big connection. So yes, you're alone on your machine while you're riding. Sometimes you're alone while you're riding with someone else, and that feeling is also, you know, a kind of fraternité. I don't know what's the
A brotherhood.
brotherhood feeling, and there's definitely a connection. But when it comes to rally like the Dacre, the reason why I'm signing up solo and why I'm doing this by myself is because on top of being alone, you're alone in very remote area. Like you go far, you get lost, and it I never had major problem, but it could happen, and that's what I like to, I don't know, I like to put myself in those kind of situation where I rely on myself and I rely on my creativity, my solution, uh, my way of solving problem. You know, I like to kind of put myself in danger. And in these case, what is nice with an event like the Dacre is that you have that feeling. You're in the middle of nowhere, somewhere lost in Ontario. You're alone, all by yourself. If anything happened, there's a sweep team coming up behind you. You know, someone will pick you up and you won't die there tonight. So that's super nice because you can experience this feeling of being exposing yourself, but in the same time there's a backup plan, you know, so which you don't have if you just go into trails by yourself without registering in an event like that. So which is I it's something that I really love in an event of rally, of, you know, very long ride like the Dacre, is getting somewhere where there's nothing, there's no cottage close, there's no phone, there's no you know, LTE or whatever. You're just there, you know, alone.
Yeah, and the organization of the sweep team was incredible because I was watching it from the behind the scenes, and there was so much tracking going on all
Yeah,
day, seeing where people are constantly communicating with the checkpoints to make sure that nobody is left behind. It was incredible because, as
yeah,
you said, yeah, those terrains are quite remote. Yeah.
exactly. And they're rough too on the machines. So even if you're a good rider, your machine was well prepared, you know, a problem can occur out there because it's you're going through unusual rough terrain for unusual long time. You know, it's like rough trails after rough trails after rough trails. In my case, it was like 15 hours in a row. So
Yeah. And so, and you touched upon something very interesting because you're an artist, you know what creativity is. And I was just thinking after this event that trail riding is probably the most creative form of motorsports. When you're on a track in a car, there's the same line, same track over and over again. The only way you can improve yourself is by increasing your speed and increasing it like that. But here, when the terrain is always different, even the same trail could be different from day to day. How do you see the difference between being creative in your artistic endeavors and creative on track or on trail?
it's two type of creativity, very different. One is based on a methodology uh, that would be closer than a track racer in a car or a bike. It's it's a professional approach that I'm exploring, and I've developed this style in my in my artistic career for the last 15 years. So it's not something that I'm starting fresh every time that I'm doing. It's something that I'm following up each and every pieces that I'm finishing. I'm starting something that kind of a response to the last one, and I'm keep on going on this, and I'm making it evolving. When I'm riding the trails, where I see the creativity is it's closer to the way that a pot maker would make his our
Pottery.
pottery, with
Yep, with a spinning wheel.
a spinning wheel. Yeah, he's constantly acting and reacting and responds to what's happening. And in the trails, it's basically this, that the bike is hitting rocks sometime that you haven't see coming. So the bike will react some way, and you have to move to counterbalance this reaction of the bike. So basically, at one point, I'm pretty sure if you would follow me with a camera, I would look like someone who's dancing on his bike, because the bike is moving a lot, and my body is kind of a gimbal. I'm trying to stay put. The body is trying to stay at the same place. The head doesn't move too much, but the bike is moving on each side and hitting stuff and going up and down. And I'm following it with my knees, with my legs, but I'm not sitting on the bike all the time, and I'm not doing exactly the same movement that the bike is doing. If I would, it would be too rough for my body. I wouldn't be able to take it. After an hour or two, I would be dead. So if you avoid, your body becomes a second set of suspension on your bike in a certain way. So that needs a lot of real-time input, because it's happening there, and you have to react at the moment and correct the trajectory of the bike and realign in the trails and keep your pace. And my strategy on the last weekend was to keep a slow but steady pace. So always going forward and going up hills, not slowing down too much, but keeping always the same pace. So that helps a lot, because it creates a momentum, and the creativity gets in line again in this approach, because you need to find your line in the trails, in between the rocks, over the trees and things like that. So you need to focus on what's coming 30, 40 feet in front of you, not right in front of your front wheel. So you need to constantly think a couple of shots ahead, a bit like when you're playing chess. So your creativity comes in line in order to analyze the ground and choose the best line you can, in order to not get stuck and lose your momentum and lose your pace. As long as you keep your momentum, everything is easier, because the bike is going over things by itself, because it has its speed, its inertia, it goes forward. So if you keep your momentum, you work less physically with your body, because you don't have to push the bike, or you don't have to hold it, because you put your feet on the ground. So all those little things that you're saving during the day makes yourself fresh for the next day, which is not the case for the Dacre, but Sonora Rally, which is coming in fall, will be 5 days in a row. So every day, wow, the next morning, I'm stepping back on my bike and I'm doing another couple of hundreds kilometers in the sand dune in this case, but it's going to be in the desert in Mexico. So
wow. So it sounds like you are shaping your experience when you are on the trail, and it sounds like there's a constant feedback, constant embodiment and a feedback, so that it becomes a perfect combination of the man and the machine.
Yes, I mean, it has to be, you need to be in perfect sync with the machine in order to keep it fluid. And that's one of the things that I try to do when I'm riding. It's try to keep it fluid. because as long as it's fluid, again, you save energy because you reuse your energy that you use to launch yourself somewhere, to relaunch yourself somewhere else, because you kind of flow it. It's not you fighting against what you just did. And it's a lot about that in my approach in trail riding.
Yeah, and you also mentioned how it is important to focus on the trail, obviously. But what have you noticed in your focus? Because you have to focus for the entire day, whatever many hours it is. And the focus might fluctuate because we obviously, our brains can't focus straight on 24/7. So, how do
That's
those fluctuations show up for you?
it. First of all, you need to have as less as possible fluctuation. You need to be as sharp as possible, as much as you can all day long. And that's another great reason to save your energy everywhere you can, because as more you're tired, less you're sharp, less you're prompt to do some mistake. And since you're tired, you won't have the strength to correct those mistakes, and you will crash. And this crash will hit you a little bit, probably not hard enough to take you out of the race, but hard enough to take a bit of your energy again. And you need to lift your bike, so you take another bit of your energy again. So all of those little things accumulate in an enduro event. When you're going for long days like the Dacre, you need to take all of these little things in counter, because they will affect you. And by the end of the day, I was not having as much control at the end of the day, and as much sharpness that I did earlier in the day. And I have on camera a couple of little tiny stupid, I dropped the bike on the side in the trails a couple of times, and that's not something I would have done usually. It's just that my arms were weak. I was not paying attention enough at the right place at the right moment, so I had to work against the bike, and I wasn't able to keep it. So the bike fell on the side. It was like little tiny things, but it's just an example of, if you let your guard down, the trails just keep coming to you. As long as you're going in the trail will come, and trees will come, and things like that. So you can't take your guard down. You need to stay as sharp as possible all along the way. And if you feel at one point that you're not, you better stop, take a break, breathe a bit, just pump, and then go back on your bike when you feel you're recovered, because it could be dangerous. It could make a difference between a beautiful nice day like I had, or a broken bike or injury or thing like that. So
Absolutely. And have you discovered any tricks or tips or something that helps you prepare to maintain that sharp focus, but also to regain it as you are becoming more and more tired?
Red Bull. That's nice, because at Dacre they provide Red Bull as much as you want.
Yes.
A good coffee in the morning. Keep being hydrated. That's something super important. Electrolyte as much as you can. And every time you meet with your support truck or the checkpoint, drink a lot, rehydrate yourself, because sometimes you're so focused that I noticed a couple of times that I was forgetting breathing. So I kind of it's like I'm coming out of the water at one point. I'm, oh my god, okay. I was so focused on what I was doing that if you're well hydrated, you'll be in much better shape after 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 hours of spending energy. If you're well hydrated, it will make all the difference.
That's true, because we're made out of water and the brain runs on electricity. So it's no brainer. But is there anything that you do days or weeks before to improve the focus? Obviously, it's easy to train physically. You go to the gym, you work out, but is there anything you do to train that sharp mindset, sharp focus?
Uh, Not specifically, no. I'm very busy. I'm working a lot. I would say, looking at your question, there was a question that was going a bit in this sense, and I was thinking a lot of my mental training, I would say it's pretty much in the garage, like what I'm doing, like opening the motor and splitting it in half and rebuilding the entire thing from scratch, because this brings me in a complete different mode. It brings me to focus on the perfection of the mechanic, and something that is completely different. It's out of me. It's out of the trail. It's about spending some time very quiet in a clean environment, and because when you're doing jobs like that, you don't want sand or dirt to go in there. So everything is like, it's kind of purgatoire, it's a way of being alone by myself.
It sounds like it's a meditation for you.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, exactly. Meditation. It's a good way of presenting it. Spatial visualization, because you need to understand all of the parts, what they're doing, where they go, and why they're mounted like that. So you need to see them moving.
And it sounds also like during that process, you get acquainted with your machine a lot more. You get to know it a lot better. So when you're out there on the trail, the unity.
You're confident about your machine. A lot of riders don't even accept that someone is doing the mechanics on their machine. They are the only person that can touch it, because they don't trust other people to make sure all the little details won't be forgotten. And I'm not that way, but most of my mechanic, I'm doing it by myself.
Yeah, it makes sense, because there's an element of control that you want to exert when you are engaged with such a dynamic activity. For sure, it makes sense. And so, have you noticed any correlation between going to an event like that and then either having more creativity in your daily business work, or having more focus after an event like that, or maybe less focus because you're too tired and exhausted? Has there been any effect that carries over?
I think it's super hard to say, because I'm living, it's hard to say if I would be different right now if I did the Dacre last weekend. One thing I can say is that it makes me happy. And like you said, if something makes you happy, it needs to keep on going, because that's what life is about. It's finding happiness and being comfortable and happy and healthy.
Yeah, because when we're happy, everyone else around us is happy, and it transfers.
Exactly.
And then we work better, because when we're happy, we produce better work.
I'm pretty sure that I would be much more grayer if I wasn't doing things like that. I would certainly smile less. I don't know. It's pretty much the only thing I can respond to this question, because it's part of my life. It's hard to say. I shared something on the social networks a couple of months ago. It was a meme with a motorcycle little drawing, and it was saying, imagine the world without motorcycle, and then underneath it was, slap your face and never do that again.
100%. Oh my God. Yes, like cannot imagine life without motorcycles. Like
Yeah, yeah.
that's so true. And that's a great case for longevity and youthfulness and keeping that energy alive, because you know how they say growing old is mandatory, growing up is optional. Well, this is exactly what keeps you young.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And like Clint Eastwood is saying, he's he's staying young because he don't let the old man in. So, so
Absolutely.
basically, in life, don't let the old man in. And 94 years old, and you'll still produce movies.
Yeah. So looking back at this event, what was the highlight of it, of the entire rally?
I would say the quality of the trails, the quality of the challenge that we had last weekend was just perfect. You know, it was beautiful. Uh, I did a lot of trails in my life, and these were just like, I don't know how he managed to do that, but there was so little highway liaison this year. There was almost none. We were like going from trails to trails to trails, and little gravel road and little, forest road, and then trails again, trails. And then we went to where is the OVR rally area, where was the lunchtime. And this area was a lot of single track, and the single track were like just amazing. Some steep climb, but doable. It wasn't something that it will kill you, but just a good challenge to pump up the adrenaline. And when you get on the top of it, you're like, I did it. All right, good. Keep on going now.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
So
so, with that being said, what was the most challenging part?
hard to say. Hard to say. There was a water crossing in the morning that I've been very afraid to sink my bike because I didn't took the right lane, I guess. I went on the wrong side of the pond or whatever we were crossing, because it was dark and I was having only my light beam in front of me, and it was very deep. So, but it wasn't that challenging. It just gave me a good fright because the water was pretty level with my air intake filter. So just a little bit of more water and my bike would have drink water and would have been a very bad situation. But I came out of this fairly easily. I mean, I don't want to sound I don't want to sound but all the challenge were easily doable. uh it was just doing all of them one after the other that was making this difficult.
Well,
Everything
probably
that
physical challenge was probably the biggest, just getting tired and
Yes,
fatigue.
yes, because you get tired, and at what point you don't have the strength to hold up the handlebar properly. So it's quite something. At the end of the day, I had a problem. I lost the bolt on my motor, and I lost oil, and I had to wait for my support truck to bring me some oil at one point, and I filled up. So there's a guy in side by side that passed me, and we arrived at one point in the trail, and he was stuck in by a log that was crossing the trail, and he was having trouble to remove that log. So I've stopped there. I passed my bike over it, and I've stopped there to help the guy because it was kind of an impossible situation. And he said, my entire day has been this, removing logs of the trail, because he was the first one in side by side. I was the first one in bike, but he was always the first one to hitting a log in the trail. So he had to always constantly remove trees. So one of the big challenge was to go through like those obstacles. there was so many obstacle. This obstacle, I helped him remove it, wasn't an obstacle for me because I could pass over it with my bike. He couldn't be with the side by side because the tree was going in an angle. So I could pass on the lower side, but he couldn't go over it with his side by side. So the biggest challenge was all of those small challenge, one after the other. And that's what makes a rally a rally. It's like
a compilation
possible.
of all the challenges together.
Yeah, and you need to take care, because on the opposite of a track experience, you don't know what's coming. So you try to go as fast as you can, but in the meantime, you don't know what's after the next curve. And it can be, a washout terrain by a water flow a couple of days ago, and there's a big ditch now right in the middle of the trail, and you arrive there at full speed and it surprise you. So you need to take good care of these things. And I don't know, it's all of these little challenges that accumulates that make this day a big challenge. It's very hard to say, like, this section was probably, for someone who had to bail out at one point because he couldn't do it, you could probably pinpoint, or this section, it was just over the top, I couldn't do it. So, but to me, it's like, it's the entire thing that is the highlight. And it was a super, super nice experience.
It sounds like the entire thing is the highlight and the entire thing is the challenge, all at the same time.
Yes, exactly. That's something that it's how I feel it when I'm doing it. It's like, it's fun after fun after fun after fun after fun all day long. When I have a gym at home and I'm training, and quite frankly, I have hard time to be disciplined with training, because I like to move, and training, it's not much about movement. It's stationary, and I have a stationary bicycle to pedal a bit at night. What I'm doing is that I'm playing on the TV videos, point of views of people riding in the desert with motorcycle. Keeps me going on the bicycle. It gives me kind of an interest to go forward. I'm looking at that, and it gives me the I would say that motivation.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what's the one thing that you would like to improve before your next rally or next event?
I'm constantly trying to improve my physical capacity, my endurance. Like this weekend, I'm going to enduro training in Trois-Rivières, where I'm going to work like a very hard, tight section, rough terrain, things like that. And in order to develop my arms, mostly, I would say my arms are probably my weakest point in all of this, because they're pumping, and at one point I don't have any strength in my arm. So that would be the thing that I'm working on the most, like the strength of my hand and the strength of my arms.
Yeah, it makes sense, because physical body is where everything happens. It's impossible to perform if your body is not performing. And it is so incredibly exciting. And I hope the listeners got this excitement, because it's really hard to describe. I ride on the street, so I understand bikes and I understand race cars, but this is like a whole another level of fun. And I hope to get on the trails someday, because I don't know what I've been doing, missing all these trails all these years. And so if there was one message that you could impart on people who maybe have been riding but kind of put it away because life got in the way, or they forgot that their bikes, they're in their garage and they're getting rusted away, or somebody who never even considered trail riding, what would you tell them?
Take care, it's a mental disease.
Oh my God, it's so true.
An expensive one to So it's not for everyone, for sure. But as long as you can stand on pegs and go forward on two wheels, you should experience trails. And you go step by step. You don't go, you don't sign up gold first year and at the Dacre, but you experience those trail, and at one point a couple of years after, you put yourself up to the challenge. Will you be able to get to bronze at the end of bronze, and then you try silver, and then you try gold. And it's it's wonderful place to test yourself, to make a mistake, because like I said, there's a backup plan. There's a sweet team that is coming to help you out if there is anything. They even offer a towing service now for a very cheap price. I was super surprised with the price. To take your bike out of the woods, if you break down, they will go pick up your bike and tow it. So it's the perfect place to check if you can do it or not. Because if you fail, someone will help you to get back on your feet and come back home tonight. So
yeah, I completely agree. And I also, because as we mentioned, it's a very isolated experience. I think those silver, bronze, gold awards, they don't mean as much as they would be in another area. The whole development happens inside the person. And because
absolutely.
there's such a unity of man and the machine, and the creativity of constantly moving together with nature, it brings us more in the present moment, into that now, which everybody talks about. And out of that comes that innate happiness and joy that we can carry over into our lives.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's something I think in psychology and in therapy, they will make you experiment things and make you succeed at things to make your brain learn that it is capable of doing it. Event like the Dacre, going in the trails and remote area like that, it's a bit this kind of approach is showing to your brain that yes, we're living in society, we have LTE connection all the time, but every once in a while you can be very all by yourself and just make it. It will work. And I don't know, I think it has a purpose in life to feel like you could be sufficient all by yourself, in those places.
That is so true. To be in nature and to feel that sufficiency is something quite different. So I hope the listeners got a lot out of this conversation, because they're just absolute gems as you look at it. And once again, shout out to Lee Martin and the Rally Connects, and also
Absolutely.
Rally Valley Enduro, who were supporting the trails, and all the supporting teams and crews that were for that event.
Yeah.
Without them, nothing would have happened. So great shout out to them.
Rally Connects, Lee Martin, they are organizing another event that is coming up. It's Rock on Rally. I'll be there with another bike, because it's different type of trail. It's more single track, more enduro type of trail. But it's another beautiful event that I did last year, and I recommend to everyone, if you have an enduro bike and you want to experience to ride with a group of individuals that are there to have fun and to help each other out and to go through a challenge all day long, it's the place to be. And Ottawa Valley Rally, it's another one that I promised myself to be this fall at the color rally.
Yeah, absolutely. If you got a bike, or if you can get access to a bike, go get it, go try it out. It's so much fun. So thank you so much for watching, for listening to this podcast, and best of luck. We have a little bit of summer left. Let's enjoy it to its fullest, and we'll see you on the trails.